Telltale Games has had a hit-or-miss formula for reviving the point-and-click adventure game of yesteryear over the last decade, but with The Walking Dead, they've found tremendous critical and commercial success. I've thought long and hard over the last few weeks about how to do a spoiler-free review of this game, and have revisited my review multiple times. Even in doing so, there are certain things that must be discussed. At its core, this is a gameplay-light experience, and I call it that, an experience, because that's what it truly is. It is closer to a choose-your-own-adventure story than it is a traditional game. That's not to say that there aren't control mechanics and interactivity, but it only exists insofar as to progress the story in one of several directions. In essence, this game is about choice, and its choices weigh heavily upon you, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Hello? Anybody?
Gameplay. The gameplay is generally third-person control, although occasionally it is first-person. In either case, you have a cursor that you move around the screen and press buttons to interact with the world. Conversations are quick-time events that have significance as characters in the game remember what you say and how you act towards them. Because they're quick-time events, you have a limited amount of time in order to answer the questions. Sometimes it means people will not be there when you need them. Sometimes it means deciding a friend or an enemy. There is a timer running out when you have a dialogue tree, and you don't have very much time to make a decision. The game, through its gameplay, is constantly pushing you forward. Combine this with the story's narrative, and The Walking Dead's gameplay creates a palpable sense of apprehension for every choice you make. On the plus side, it's great to help progress story along. It's got a simple interface anyone can use, and it's less adventure-gamey and more quick-time eventy. Minuses? It's slow and sometimes difficult to aim during timed events. In regards to story, I could write 3,000 words solely on the story aspect of The Walking Dead. This also is the challenge of our site mission, to be spoiler-free in reviews. For those unfamiliar with the Walking Dead franchise, basically humanity goes to hell in a handbasket, and the dead walk and bite the living. Anyone bitten turns into a zombie. Anyone who dies turns into a zombie. Let's just say it's a dark place. Humanity tends not to get on well with itself, and the zombies aren't helping. The franchise spans comic books in its original format, a television show on AMC, and Telltale's foray, as well as the brand new Walking Dead Survival Instinct, which we'll be putting up a review for very soon. What's interesting is that this is set in the world of the comic books and not the TV show. What's even more interesting is that it takes place before the comics. We actually get to see the world disintegrate around us to some extent. I will admit I had a bit of nervousness when the game was announced. I can't discuss the game without spoiling some of the plot details from the first hour or so of the game. For those of you watching the video review, we're only showing clips from the first episode of the story. You have been warned and stuff. The story revolves around Lee, a strong, intelligent man who's been convicted for murder and is on his way to prison. Things happen as he is being driven out of Atlanta, and he is freed, meets his first zombies, and begins to realize the handbasket is being crafted around him as the world goes to hell. Two things happen at this point. First, he meets a strong little girl named Clementine.
I'm Clementine. This is my house.
Hi, Clementine. I'm Lee.
Who has stayed alive for quite some time on her own, and Lee finds help for his injuries. Second, Lee also decides to take care of Clem, as he likes to call her, because her parents are most likely dead. This sounds very cliche when looking at it from the outside, but I will say that by the end of the 5 episodes, the relationship between Lee and Clementine is one of the most genuine and heart-wrenching stories I've ever experienced. The writing is smart because you invest yourself in teaching this girl about the new world, how to survive in it, and what is right and what is wrong. It evokes the parenting instinct in both genders and creates a true emotional bond, which is something we hope to see more of in video games as time goes on. Telltale has nailed it, however, drawing from the rich world of the comics that they can draw from. The other person I need to discuss is Kenny. He's a commercial fisherman from Florida, traveling with his wife and son. You befriend him early on, and much like some real friendships, Kenny can be uplifting and a burden, many times in the same breath. What I truly like about the writer's character of Kenny is that he is 100% human. He's brilliant one moment and a complete idiot the next. He's selfish and yet helps others. He's hot-headed and annoying, but also caring and sensitive. Whether you love or hate him by the time you finish with him, there's no way that you will be able not to have formed a definitive emotional response to him. We talked about choices in the gameplay section, but it needs to be reiterated here, since every choice you make in the game actually affects the story in different ways. You can choose to make Lee into a caring, nurturing badass, or conversely, you can just make him an ass. People remember these things and respond to you differently based on what you do, so replayability of the story is high. I would liken it to a popular piece of music being remixed by two different DJs. All the high notes are there from both songs, and it will sound similar enough to pull you through, but the journey between those high notes is a completely different story. I would also liken the story to a choose-your-own-adventure book, as I mentioned before, if you happen to be old enough to recall them. It's a story-driven game as opposed to an action-driven game. There is action in the story, but the pacing is smart enough to give you that lull between action elements to let you calm down and process what just happened, and what that means for your characters. This is the first story I've ever experienced where I openly wept about something that happened in the game. As a veteran 20-plus year gamer, I would call myself desensitized to a point, but this game shattered my barriers and truly created a connection. I can't think of a better compliment to a game than that. Heavy Rain tried for it and occasionally hit it, but this game succeeds more often than it stumbles. Pluses: fantastic writing, great character development, good pacing, characters you hate, characters you fall in love with, choices that pain you, things that will make you, no matter how manly you are, tear up at least a little bit. Minuses: none. Have you been listening to this? Sound and voice acting.
You have a boyfriend?
Glenn?
Part of what makes Telltale games The Walking Dead so special are the voices behind the characters you spend time with. Lee, Clementine, Kenny, and all the others are voiced to perfection. I personally think it's a state of the industry today that you can expect to have good voice acting, as I remember a time not so long ago when voice acting was horrible. Dave Fennoy, who I suggest you do not Google or be exposed to many spoilers from the game, and also is surprisingly the voice of Hulu, plays Lee, and is amazing. I also recommend not Googling Dave because the disconnect between what he looks like and Lee, more particularly Lee's voice, is staggering. It's called acting, and it's done well by all of the cast. Music occasionally highlights certain events, but the sound is exactly what you expect it should be, which can be a tremendously difficult feat in and of itself. The only issues I had with the soundtrack was that a walker got glitch-trapped under a car at one point and growled on a loop throughout dialogue, cutscenes, and everything else to the point it was like nails on a chalkboard, with no way to put him out of my misery. Pluses: expertly performed voice acting, great sound throughout the game. Minuses: occasional glitches can create odd results. Your mileage may vary. Summary and verdict. Look, the Season Pass is $20 for all 5 episodes on PS3 or Xbox 360. I believe it's even cheaper on iOS. Each episode lasts roughly 4 hours, so at full price, you're paying $1 an hour for some of the best storytelling the game industry has ever seen. There's a reason that we are naming it our 2012 Game of the Year, joining 55 other outlets who've done so. It isn't something we take lightly, but when you think about it, isn't it the goal of video games in general to transport you to another place in time? To connect you with characters you don't know, take you on adventures you'll never have in real life, and leave you breathless nonetheless? Telltale Games The Walking Dead does that in spades. It is the Green Mile of video games, and I don't make that comparison to diminish its importance, but instead to tell you that the game isn't made of unicorns and candy mountains. It's made of waking up to find you've had an ambush liver transplant. If you can truly call yourself a gamer, you need to own this game. Our final score: 10 out of 10 fully stocked abandoned cars in the forest.
Child of fighting monsters, come with the